Feel free to participate as much or as little as you want. This isn't, you know, I'm not grading you, just like quietly, mentally grading, but but this is really supposed to be the fun part of it. This is really where we put, you know, the proverbial pedal to the metal or the fingers to the stomach. So it's supposed to be fun, but it's also supposed to show that when we're talking about healing and when we're talking about such airy-fairy things, you know, when we're talking about psychological and emotional healings, things that you can't really do much else other than like put a story to it or talk about it in these almost metaphysical ways, it's good to be able to use the hands and the body to express what's going on inside. And this is actually, if you go and you recognize some of the ancient shamanic tribes, what they would do when they would have inter-tribal issues, a lot of them would actually, the community would come together and they would start a fire and they would have a dance, almost like a dance-off. And that's actually one of the things, the correlations between war and dance is a lot of the times it's just a show and an expression of who you are and what you're feeling. But when it turns from a dance to war, when it steps over that boundary, that means you are no longer willing to accept, to care, or have any compassion for how they're feeling. You want to inflict your feelings upon them. So this is a way to keep ourselves recognizing that it's okay to feel however you're feeling. Anger is not a bad thing. And that's actually one of the things within the past maybe 20, 30 years of, you know, psychological, I mean, the one good thing about psychiatrists and psychologists is they say, good, feel your anger. That's part of you. Because when you feel it and you let it come through you, that's when it starts to transmute and turn into a message or a lesson for you. But when you ignore it and you say, oh, I never get angry, and you just bottle it up, that's when you start acting like those people bouncing around, screaming, or that's when you see crime on the streets, okay? So this is about getting in touch with you, and it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be interactive. So this is going to, we have about an hour. This is going to be very loose. It's just going to be basically about showing what I have found since I got sick at the end of last year. It was one of the, well, no, it was the most detrimental illness that I've had, but it skyrocketed me into recognizing that I was not treating with respect this thing that I was given, this gift. And a lot of the times we forget that this is a gift. We aren't owed this body. You know, a lot of us say we have a right. I'm entitled to this body, and I'm entitled to this piece of land. I'm entitled to all of this. Entitlement? No. This could be taken away by the time we walk out here. You can get hit by a Mack truck, right? We are not entitled to any of it. We are privileged to be here. And once we really start opening the heart and recognizing that, then every single moment, you don't really care to have the world be all about you. You want to give. That's the one thing about love, and I said at the beginning of Ungrip, there's one thing that Rob taught me without ever having to say it. Love is one of those things that you can never have enough of, in a sense, or you have so much of it that your natural tendency is you want to give. You want to give more. You want to share it with people. You're like, man, you have to try this thing that I'm on. It's called love, and it's awesome. When it's fear, you constantly feel like you need to take stuff from other people. Joy, money, like whatever, attention, energy. And that's the thing about Hollywood and all those things. They're all about your attention. They're there about to hypnotize your attention because they want your energy. It's vampiric in nature. This is about recognizing that you can put up boundaries and you can get in touch with you. So we're going to talk about the symbolic anatomy. If you really want to know how to heal, how to get through some of the things, because we all have things that are stored in our gut that happened when we were very young. It doesn't have to be rational. You don't even have to remember it. But they always turn into an illness, and they're still existing, and it's still right now for those emotions. You're still a little child with those emotions. So to recognize it, as all artists and shamans do, the only way to heal it is not by taking a drug or taking some kind of medicine or going to somebody else and having them lay their hands on you and you being healed. What it's about is recognizing that your body wants to say something. This is about letting it. That's all it is. giving you permission to be you. Once you've done that, there's nothing that can't be healed. So we're just going to start with a little bit of the anatomy, and we're going to talk about the symbolism of it. And then after each one, I'm going to go through a little preparation part of how we actually get to the point to where we get the energy moving. Because when we get the energy moving, that's not quite when the healing starts. It's our intention from that point forward, using the energy, how to command it. You know, it's like getting a bunch of money. You haven't done anything yet. You can, and you can do anything with it. So when you wake this energy up, this is why it's very important to pay attention to the whole process of what I'm saying here. When you wake this energy up, if you don't do anything with it, it'll start to burn you out, and it can make you feel anxious. It can make you feel even more angry. If you're not going through healing, then it's going to start to damage and turn into an illness for you. So with your feet and your ankles, just understanding what they are. And again, this isn't dogma. This is just from a few different sources and with my own understanding put together in a paragraph to better understand the essence of why our body is set up the way that it is. Our feet relate to the earth, okay? We were talking about when you notice if you have a proper footing on the ground, you stand in your power. You are literally standing in your power. Not a lot of us walk bare feet anymore, and actually we detox through the feet. It's actually very healthy to walk barefoot. It's also very healthy to walk over stones and rocks and uneven ground barefoot, because that's how you adapt to the ground, okay? So our feet relate to the earth, and the earth represents our emotional support and feeling of home and comfort. You can do this practice by just standing still and seeing how comfortable you are just standing there. There's actually a type of Qigong or even just meditation that's called standing meditation.
Mountain pose.
Yeah, mountain pose, about actually adopting a pose that shows or that reflects that I am confident. Okay? But there are some people that kind of hunch over. There are some people, the more aggressive ones, that the base of their spine, this is actually really harsh on the base of the spine, they puff up their chest. And there's an over-exaggerated curvature, but we're not talking about that. I'm going way off. Feet give balance and direction, as I was saying. Ankles adapt to the terrain. And that's what I'm talking about. When you're walking barefoot through the woods or on rocks or stones or on the beach, and then you walk up on some stones on the beach, it's actually very, very healthy for you because you're feeling the fact that this isn't as natural as you think. We're always on extremely flat ground, and it's manufactured that way to be very easy. So you can walk barefoot if you want. But the earth is a little bit different. There's always something uneven and unbalanced with the earth. And we're here to recognize that imbalance and not try and correct it, not try and fix it, but adapt to it. Okay? A lot of the times humanity tries to fix the earth to make us more comfortable, rather than what does a dog do? They'll circle around 15, 20 times, but then they'll find a spot on the ground and lay down, and they'll be comfortable. They find a way to be comfortable on the ground, rather than finding a way to make the ground a comfortable place for them. Okay? Now think of that psychologically. Everybody else has to change, because I'm not crazy, they're crazy. You know, they're all assholes, not me. They have to change. Well, that's a psychological thing. Okay? Ankles adapt to the terrain. Problems here signify a weak stance in the moment and the ability to stand up for oneself. Now again, not dogma, but just let that sink in a little bit, and later on, or even right now when we start getting into this, just take a look at how you stand, how rooted you feel, how confident you feel just standing there. This is my space. I can hold this space, not aggressively. It's not like, you know, this is my space, don't come any closer. And it's not like, I guess you can stand right next to me, you know? You're holding your space. And you feel okay with the moment, okay? Now, one of the things that you will notice about the foot is our body, again, is a reflection of our mind. And our mind reflects itself through all the different organ systems and different systems within the body. So what you'll actually notice is your feet are reflex organs. There is a spot that hits a meridian point. Remember all those energy centers? There are energy centers for every single organ and system in your body related to parts on the feet. And I'm not going to get into all of it. But one thing, It's just about getting in touch with this. You don't have to know exactly where the energy centers are. It's good to get into that. But just by simply massaging the feet, you can do this when you're watching a movie. It's unreal how much this will align your posture. Massaging the top of the feet, paying attention to the toes, playing with them, doing the whole like this little piggy went to the market type thing. You know why? Because it's the same thing with a child. When you give them attention, every individual part of your body, there's no part that's more or less important, but you want to give every one of your children just as much love, right? It's the same thing with your feet. If you notice when you have really stinky feet and it just doesn't go away, A, that's bacteria. B, that's you not detoxifying because you're always closing it in. Air never gets to it. Sunlight never gets to it. It never touches the ground. But they're also not getting any attention. And it doesn't have to be psychological. It's not like, well, my feet aren't thinking about how much attention they're getting. They don't have a mind of their own. In fact, they do. It's connected to the bodily mind. So when you play with your toes and just feel your skin and massage the tops of your feet and the bottoms of your feet, especially that center right here, okay? They call it the K1 point, the kidney point. And kidneys in an Eastern understanding, that's where all of your life force energy comes from. Your whole life force energy will actually deplete itself once your kidneys are done, okay? But without getting too far into that, massaging that part in your foot. Now that's right where you'll feel like a little divot, and it's right in between these toes, right there. So if you guys have your shoes off, you just press into that part. That is actually the portal through which we take energy from the earth. And so that's the place in Tai Chi, when you're adopting a correct stance, you focus on that point in your feet, and it feels like a little suction cup almost. Like that is the part that's actually, not that it's the closest to the ground or it's the most magnetized to the ground, but that's the part of your feet that has the most interesting relationship to the ground, okay? And that's where you pull in the energy through the earth. It's right in those points there. What's important when you're massaging your feet, and I'm going to get into why it's important, obviously, to bring the energy through there, get in between your toes. That's hardly ever touched. And I'll give one example of this. My great-grandmother, I didn't realize this until somebody brought this up to me. My great-grandmother, she died at the age of, 97, and she had 3 children through the Great Depression, and her husband died at the age of 25 while she was 20. So she raised 3 children through the Great Depression on her own, and from that point she never remarried, never got intimate with anybody after that, and she told me later in her life she hasn't been touched. It doesn't have to be sexually, it could just be a friend, just holding her, and just like nobody's ever sat on a couch with her and just held her and been like, you know what, it's good to see you. That physical, like, I'm here, I'm right next to you, I feel you, I know you're here right next to me. Think about how many widows or people that just decide to never marry again get to a certain point in their lives where they're never touched anymore. They never feel like they're actually seen or felt, or their existence is kind of, I'm just here because I'm grandma and I'm not dead yet. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of people feel. Like when you get to a certain age, you're just there for Christmas. You're just there to give $20 every now and then. And it becomes sad. One of the things that I'm talking about is there are parts in our body that feel that deprived, that hardly ever get touched. And this is when we start to have chronic problems, when we're not paying attention somewhere. Energy goes where our attention, our energy flows where our attention goes. If we just give attention and every now and then play with our toes and feel the insides of our toes, it will actually validate your existence a lot more. And I'm saying this from experience. And I'm not saying it's going to be the same for everybody, because some of you may not have the same issues that I've had. But validating every part of your body by being, you know what, I know you're there, and I do appreciate you. Yeah, I don't put food there to eat, you don't have some of the more important tasks, but I know you're there. Now the knees absorb the shock of life. Weak knees signify feelings of emotional abandonment, typically seen in cases of being literally or figuratively orphaned. lack of validation by loved ones, close deaths, breakups, or even separations. A lot of that's felt in the knees. And again, it's one of those things that it can't be said that everybody with a knee problem specifically has these problems. However, I have noticed with quite a few friends of mine and family members who have had knee operations, they start to come up when either a trauma happens in their life that brings up a death or a loss of a loved one or a breakup or a divorce, or immediately after something like that happens. And it's accumulative. Again, it doesn't just happen like, you get divorced one day and the next day you need knee surgery. It's accumulative. But the one thing I'm going to now start getting a little bit more into, if you guys want to get into this, you don't have to get up for this one, but into how to start bringing energy into these areas. For the entire body, as I'm going through the body parts, just remember that just a simple tap actually brings attention. And you'll notice that Qigong masters, this is how they wake up in the morning. They're tapping every part of their body, validating its existence. And another thing is, in the same way of like Qigong, or I'm sorry, like the shaking medicine, you're just getting energy and you're bringing motion and your expansion and contraction just by tapping. And your thymus is one spot. So on your right breast, towards the collarbone, start tapping there, okay? There are other spots, and there's like lymphatic drainage that'll start happening. So what I started noticing when I did this for like 6 hours, I was like, this is great. The next day I woke up and I had a fever of 101. You do detox. This will detox, especially the liver. Don't do this after drinking heavily. Because you can feel drunk again.
Oh yeah.
You can really, if you start detoxing the liver after a heavy night, exactly, you will start feeling, and it's not that healthy to go through a lot of healing far quicker than you're supposed to go through it, right? Remember, healing isn't about like, I just want to get through it and get on with my life. No, let the process of healing be a beautiful lesson for you, okay? But tapping. Now, we detox through the back of our knees, or I should say it this way. We hold a lot of toxins in the back of our knees because we hardly ever touch that area. We have a lot of attention here, but attention hardly goes to the back of our knees. It's usually the focus is away from it. And when we bend, our focus and our energy is always away from the back of the knees. One thing that you can do, and I'm making printouts back here because I want you guys to be able to go home with some of these printouts so it'll show you a little bit more of the specifics of what I'm talking about. And it comes from a lot of the books on Qine Song and the Taoist approach to detoxing. But we hold a lot of toxins at the bottom of our feet. That's one reason why they smell when we enclose them and we put shoes on, because it's just sitting there. They're not detoxing, they're not rubbing anything off. The back of our knees, if you were to just relax the back and you could just hold it up and just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 slaps will give that a piezoelectric force. Piezoelectric is really just getting electric energy there, and you do it on the back of both. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You don't need to do it more than that, but you need to do it enough to where you feel it. All right, it's going to feel like a smack, right? If you don't do it that much, then if you don't hit it hard enough, nothing's really going to happen. If you hit it too hard, then you're actually traumatizing the skin there. So just, give it a nice little slap, almost like a good game type of thing.
Good, Marty, good game.
The same with the knees, okay? Now, we don't slap them necessarily, but if you've ever played with your kneecap, if you relax your leg, you can move the kneecap all around. It floats around independently, okay? And one thing that's very important for that is to actually grasp a hold of it and start rotating it clockwise, counterclockwise. Do it 3, 4 times. You could just do it for 5 minutes, up, down, and then the skin on top of it, grabbing it, shaking it, using the palm of your hand where we express our energy, and rubbing along, and that's just bringing energy to it. And surprisingly, our energy, our chi, focuses on whatever we're focusing on. So if you're sitting there and you're focusing on rubbing your feet or rubbing your knees or the back of your knees, all of your energy is going there. And if there's a problem there, like if you have knee problems, focus on it. Pay a lot of attention to it. You know, a lot of people have back problems, and that's why I'm going to be getting to that, and that's very, very important to recognize where back problems come from. But again, it's very simple. If you guys forget 90% of what I'm talking about, just remember by putting your hands on a certain part of your body, slapping it around a little bit, letting it know who's boss, and giving it a little bit of motion. Motion brings energy, okay? If you ever notice when you're doing like the Indian burn type thing, it becomes red. Why? Energy and blood is flushing to that area. And that's exactly, this is the handout, or the page that I'm going to be putting in your handout that actually shows a little bit of that. Strong feet and tendons increase your stability by connecting you to healing energy of the earth. The feet are also like remote controls for the whole body, as the soles of the feet have energy meridians corresponding to all of the body's organs, glands, and limbs. Massaging the reflex areas on the feet will help to stimulate the corresponding organs and glands and increase circulation of the entire body. You guys will be getting this in a handout. So the hips. I actually, when I started getting into Chine Song, I got into it because I read an article, somebody said we store a lot of repressed emotions in our hips. And I was like, that's awesome, but I want to know where this girl got that information. And she directed me towards a book that's all about Chine Song. And that's that abdominal massage that I'll be talking about. But we hold a lot of tension in our hips. And I noticed that was one spot that I held a lot of my tension. And you'll notice that with people, when you lock your knees, you lock up your hips too. And what that's doing is you are not allowing energy in or out. And it's a state of paralysis. When you have tight hips and you're locking your knees, we're supposed to be standing with a slight bend in our knees, but when you lock it, it's a state of paralysis, fear, and that'll start affecting your kidneys. The hips are the cradle upon which the more vital parts of the body rest. In Eastern philosophy, the hips are emotionally symbolic of our parents. The left for our mother and the right for our father. Again, not dogma, but it's good to look at. It's good to recognize. Problems signify a fear of moving forward in life. Because remember, where does all of our movement come from? Our momentum comes from the hips. So when you have hip problems, a lot of the times, it can point towards a fear of knowing, or also like knowing where we want to go, but having a fear of going there. The other side of that is fearing that we just don't know, and like being afraid that we're just wasting our time. A lot of that holds itself in the hips, because another thing that you do when you're tense is you tighten up the hips and you tighten up the glutes, and you're forcing that energy away from here, away from the sexual organs, up into the chest. And this is what we should be doing as beginners, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sure, no problem.
So get up, come on, we're gonna, no, I'm just kidding. No, more realistically, yes, this does open the hips, and some of us are there, some of us aren't. So being realistic, you know, I'm not even gonna attempt that one. More realistically, sitting on a chair, if you open your legs up a little bit and you have your legs, remember, legs pointing forward. This is a Qigong, or a Qigong, a Tai Chi, and also a Kung Fu stance. Your feet are always facing forward. But when you're sitting down, if you just open the legs and start leaning into it, you'll feel right in the groin area that starts to pull and it starts to stretch. This is one of the simplest ways to start opening up the hips, okay? You can do it just sitting down. When notice is if you know where the psoas muscle, which is the strongest muscle in our body, going from the back of the spine to the hips, this gives you the psoas muscle gives you the energy to cradle up, to curl up. And that is the strongest muscle in your entire body. When that becomes tense, you'll notice that you have back problems. This motion and sitting like that and actually like stretching it relieves a lot of back tension. So it's one thing to recognize that if you have a lot of back problems, open up the hips. It actually relieves a lot of lower back pain, okay? And you can do that as long as you want. Another thing, for anyone that can't see, it's just simply sitting down putting your feet together in this simple way, and you just shaking your legs up and down. If you can't see that, sorry.
Little kids do that all the time.
All the time.
Yep.
And if you notice, little babies, how do little babies lay a lot of the times? They're freaking laying down on their feet.
Yeah.
Right? They're totally limber. It's not until we get older and we establish routines and we stop using our body in certain ways that it atrophies, and then we can no longer do it anymore. If you notice, some people that have hunchbacks, or if they're slightly off-center, if they're not symmetrical anymore, that's because they're overcompensating with certain muscles and defending a certain part of the body. Okay? And here, this is kind of what I was showing before, tapping the feet, but this is a way to prepare for Qigong to get the energy moving. This is a way to start it. You start at the feet, you just open up, you have the feet standing, going directionally forward, and you're just tapping all the way up, get all of your body, be sensitive around this area. Okay? The glutes is another thing. You can even, when you get to the glutes, you could be a bit more rough. You could actually like really use your fists and open it up. And then when you get up to the stomach, be a little bit more gentle, but use a bear paw, as they say in Tai Chi, and just tap around the stomach. This is really good if you have digestion problems, just to tap around the organs gently. A lot of the times, if you do it while exhaling, take a look. Because as you're exhaling, you're releasing the energy, and you're symbolically taking everything that you're trying to unlodge, and you're giving it an outlet. You're giving it a symbolic outlet. That's actually why we do things like, let's say we're chasing after a bus, and we're really, really tense, and then when we get there and we finally get on the bus, we're like, what? Right? And we're just like, oh, Christ. Finally, here, you give it an outlet, and you relax in that moment, okay? That's why, and I'll go through some of the healing sounds. They're very primal, guttural sounds that we can use to heal different systems in our body. But as far as tapping, what he's doing, he's standing backwards, and this is where our kidneys lie. You can't really access the kidneys from the front. If you can touch every single organ from the front, except the kidneys. But if you can get to the kidneys and touch them, that means that you don't need any healing there. You really don't need to be going there, because your stomach will allow you in to places that are healed. If it's not allowing you in, you're protecting something. So if you can get to the kidneys, that's the one area, well, that and the heart, please don't try and go for the heart, or the lungs. But your kidneys are a little bit more set back here, okay? And I'll actually, let's see the next slide. We get into the kidneys here a little bit. When you're just rubbing and bringing the backs of your hands around, that's pulling and stretching the fascia, and that's bringing your attention from here down your body and out. And another thing that's important for all the spots in our midsection is when you want to bring healing to a specific type of the organ, breathe and imagine that breath is going exactly there. So you can breathe into the back. Your chest isn't the only thing that moves when you breathe. Your stomach isn't the only thing. You don't just expand forward when you breathe. These are balloons. They go everywhere. Yes, you're going to rise up a little. Yes, you're going to sink a little. Yes, you're going to go out in all directions. And that's what happens in Chine Song. When you have somebody on the table, you actually give them like a boundary. And this is very, very relaxing. If you have somebody else and you can do this with, hold their rib cage and hold it kind of tight. Give them a boundary. If you do it too loose, the body doesn't respond to it as a boundary. If you do it tight enough and just say, breathe me out, then you will breathe into the hands. And the same thing in the back. You can breathe up here, but when we're talking about the kidneys, you just push your back out a little, and you hunch over a little, and you breathe into that area. And you imagine your kidneys filling up, and then that is a guttural sound that vibrates specifically in your kidneys. It's like choo-choo train, like choo. And you'll notice that Qigong masters, they do it seated, so you guys are in a good position, But you bring your energy, and you bring your hands out, and you go, and breathe into your kidneys, and then you wrap around your knees and go, and you exhale until you cannot exhale anymore. And you do that 3 or 4 times. After each time, you just sit straight up, relax, and you feel the presence of your relaxed system in the kidneys. After each and every time you do this, you want to relax and just pay attention to it. Let it get back to normal. Because each and every time you do this, it's far more powerful than sometimes we give it credit for. That's why you really only need to do it 3 times. And you could do it every single day, but really only stick around maybe 3 to 5 times. Okay? But when I say inhale, I mean really inhale into your back. And then when you finally get into where you can't inhale anymore, you hold it and you bring your intention to detoxifying your kidneys. And then when you do it, you stick your neck out and you give it a direct outlet. And it's... And when you're all out of breath, push a little more. You can always get a little bit more breath out than you think you can. And remember, bring the intention, because the kidneys are very difficult to get at and to detoxify. That is deep-seated fear that sits in our kidneys. Wow. So the lower back, that's where the kidneys sit. The low back sits right between the kidneys, representing the support beam in the scales of Libra. They're sitting right around here, right underneath the rib cage. So when I say the scales of Libra, you know Libra, the zodiac sign, yeah. There's a central column and these 2 arms, and they're holding 2 plates. And those plates, right, are the 2 scales, that's holding, in representation to the body, our kidneys. And there's a crossing point at the heart that actually brings, so there's a connection also between the heart and the kidneys. But we hold a lot of deep-seated fear. I'm not just talking about the fear of what's this guy going to say to me, or oh my God, I have to tell this person how I really feel. I'm talking deep-seated fear, primal fears sit there. So that is a really tricky but important part of the body to detox. Fear and worry. The lower back pain signifies an inability to relax due to worry of the future, locking the adds to this pain. I don't even know what I was trying to say there. It's beyond me. It's pretty profound. But
typo. Yeah.
Locking the something adds to this pain. I think it might be the hip. No, knees. Locking the knees adds to this because when we were talking about the fear of abandonment and things like that, that's the one thing that we seem to fear most. Is that in our most vulnerable times, nobody will be there for us. And that sits around our knees. So when you lock your knees, that's part of your paralysis, and your deepest fears paralyze you. That sits in the kidneys.
So not to go off, like when you're talking about people standing with knees locked and stuff, like women were famous for like the 1 foot thing. Mm-hmm. How does that?
Well, that's not necessarily bad. But it's all symbolic. Everything your body is doing is symbolic. And this is the cool part about artists. Take a look at your body just artistically. You know, some people probably here do this, but stand in front of a mirror naked. Appreciate your body. But also, pay attention to it. Pay attention to your face. Pay attention, not just, you're right, the symmetry, but not just the way it looks, but come up with a story. If you had to separate yourself from that, just come up with a story about your body and let your body tell the story, in a sense. If you've ever read the Anastasia books and the Book of Kin, where the child is pointing at the trees and the trees are telling him the story, and that's their Bible or that's their mythology. It's telling him in real time. Let your body become an artistic story of you. Because if you just have to intuitively come up with something, like in the moment, all right, what does my stance tell me? It tells me this. You're probably going to be right on, because you and your higher intelligence knows exactly what your body is trying to tell you. There's a certain psychological block that we're trying to get through with a lot of it. So when it comes to always like sitting on one leg, that's typically you're balancing on masculine or feminine, or you're one-sided in a sense a lot of the times. So when you're watching somebody, and again, this isn't dogma, but a lot of the times you'll notice that when somebody's like saying something to you and you don't know how to feel about it, but you want to let them finish, you're like, you know what I mean? Or like,
I've seen
it's like,
my
okay,
kids.
let me get a little more comfy for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's typically because we don't want to stand for what's happening a lot of the times. But again, like these are just things that could be, because a lot of the times we're just freaking tired. We're just like, it's like, oh man. But a lot of times when you're excited, you don't just lean on one. You're balanced, because that inspiration that you're feeling, that excitement, that's all you need to be alive, to stand on your own 2 feet.
Let's bring an additional point when we talk about looking in the mirror and appreciating your body. I've done it myself. If you ever look in the mirror when you're looking at your body, and it looks different from one day to the next, pay attention to how you feel that day or what happened the day before. Your body's trying to tell you, focus and pay attention to it. What's changed? This is different. This is like, you look in the mirror and say, my face looks different. This is more predominant, or I like the way this looks. Or let's say things you're doing in your body, whether it's you change your diet, you're feeling healthier, you start to look brighter, more vibrant. Pay attention to what you're seeing in the body, because it'll bring focus to what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I found the strangest thing when I first saw it. I'm like, I didn't look like that yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I noticed is I've gone through periods in my life where I've been like down a rabbit hole, and I just refuse to get back to reality. I'm, like ultra shamanism. I want to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. I want to see what nobody's seen before. You know what the face reflects most of the time when you go down that rabbit hole that far? Your eyes will sink in, and you'll look like life is just almost like the Holocaust victims, You'll look like you've just seen too much. You're going far too far. And then what I noticed is when I was like, screw it, I'm not going down any rabbit holes, I'm just going to get back to normal life again, that starts to come back. My eyes start to like not sink in my head anymore. The bags and like the black around my eyes, it goes away, and I start to glow a little bit more. Because that doesn't mean that going down a rabbit hole is bad, but there's a balance to everything. So you're right, you're totally right. Pay attention to your body. There's nothing that you could ever do that is wrong, okay, to your body, because we can learn from anything, but having a respect for what you're, a lot of the times I have a drive to do something regardless of what my body's telling me, and that's not respectful. That's like in a relationship, if you have a loved one and you want to go down like this path with them, and not recognizing that they really don't want to go down that path, they just love you so much that they'll go with you to the end of the earth, but it's not what they want, and it starts to bring attention to that relationship. It's the same thing with you. Establish a relationship as if it was an outsider that you don't quite understand yet. Always pay attention to it, like, okay, I want to do this, the I, the me, the myself, but does my body, does my being really want to do that? A lot of the times, we're not on the same page. Just to move along a little bit more, because I really want to get to, how are we doing on time? Because I really want to get to some of the more interesting parts of this. 15 more minutes? All right, I'll just blow this out. The mid-back holds our diaphragm and at the T6 and connects to our breath expansion. Pain here brings attention away from deep emotional trauma, as the breath is how we get in touch with repression. T4 sits right behind our heart and connects us with the feelings of freedom. C7 connects our arms and signifies reaching out to give and receive. So that's just a little bit of a reference point to where some of that sits in our body. And again, just simply tapping and finding spots within you that are sensitive, that don't want to be touched. Don't be too aggressive, but let them know that you're there. The same thing when a child, because we're talking about dealing with the inner child here. When a child just wants to shut you out because they're dealing with something and they don't want anyone to see the fact that they're dealing with something, let's say they're ashamed with it, you don't want to just abandon, okay, they don't want to be around anyone, I'll walk away. The child doesn't really want that. They just want to feel validated for the feelings that they're feeling. So you're there, even though it kind of pains them that you're there seeing them that way. But you want to let the parts of your body that are really in pain, emotional pain, you want to let them know that you're there. So if you feel like, I don't know why, but I always just have this this tension in my back, or I always have this kink up here, or I always have, some type of pain, like for some reason, my glands down here always have pain on this side. But I notice that when I start giving it attention and just rubbing it a little bit, it'll go away within a few days, and my attitude improves. I have no idea why, but a lot of the times, you'll hold on to things, and they become sensitive because they're holding a lot of toxicity. And they don't want to be seen. That's why they kind of react the way that they do when you go to touch them. Recognize where your pain and your discomfort is. Go ahead. The shoulders carry responsibility. The left is indicative of the emotional. The left is indicative of the emotional weight that we carry, and the right is indicative more of the mental function. We also hide emotions here, and this also is talking about the traps and up near the neck, where there is something too scary to process. Some of us tend to assume larger responsibility in life, which reprioritizes. Thank you. I'm not even going to attempt it. It takes attention away from where we're really feeling it, and we start to assume more responsibility at work to take attention away from where it really needs it. And the elbows. A lot of the times, you ever notice when people get older, their elbows start to look like a little bit more like crusty and decrepit, and there's not that much attention going on there. It'll become dry, and then you find these calluses on there. A lot of the times, we don't pay enough attention to our elbows. Elbows are used as a defense from receiving. When we panic, our arms cover our face, and our elbows typically point direction at the feared object. If somebody's coming and trying to harm me, elbows, straight towards what we fear, okay? So this is always directing that energy like that, okay? When we're in a fight or flight response. Problems here indicate overprotection for receiving, and occasionally represents a weakness in giving, okay? And again, this is just representing those things. But same thing as with the knees. Just take the palms of your hands and rub the elbows and just use the motion. Just recognize that using that motion will start to get the synovial fluid going, and that synovial fluid carries an essence of our attention, in the same way that breast milk carries an essence to the child. Now, I just want to elaborate that point. There is no way that a little child this big in 3-4 weeks can grow that big from breast milk alone. It is not the amount of breast milk that is going into the child that grows that type of mass in the child. Right? It's not the amount of food that goes in that grows the body. There's an essence, there's an emotional interchange. There is a relationship between the mother and the child that allows for that child to grow in that way. It's not just if you shove 5 pounds of food into a child, they'll grow 5 pounds. That's not how it goes. Okay? So it's the same thing. All fluid within our body, it's fluid for a reason. It's able to get through places that the stiffer tissue is not able to. And it brings the essence of exactly what you're thinking and feeling in the moment to that area. Okay? The same with blood. So you always want to focus on getting the energy to the area while you're focusing on an intent. Okay? When you're rubbing a certain part of your body and your intention is on it, all the fluids will swarm with that intention, meaning it's carrying that intention, that loving intention. And this is the last one of the slides here. The wrists are emotionally connected with giving and holding. You may see wrist problems in those who have become rigid in their approach to life, unwilling to give or receive more. Control issues surface through the wrists and hands, feeling like we have to grip and control our lives. Hands are synonymous with the expressions of the heart. A lot of the times when people are speaking with their hands, they're expressing how they're feeling. And they won't even recognize it, but a lot of the times when someone's upset, you cover up the hands. You're like, I'm done with this. And you're also protecting the heart, okay? But the hands are also what we use to shake the crap out of people that are annoying us. Or, to get somebody's attention, right? So the wrists are often, and a lot of times what I show the people is just find the full range of mobility of your entire body. This is very, very simple, but it's always forgotten. You always find that the most simple things that you can do for your health are always the ones that are overlooked. We want to find the more complex ones. If you just get the energy moving in your body, you'll notice, listen to it too. Sometimes, as you get older, you'll notice the cracks and the creaks and the stiffness at certain areas. That's showing you something. That's calcification at sometimes. That sometimes your body doesn't want to move there anymore. It wants to start dying off and calming down and start getting ready for the afterlife. Okay? But I say no. Same thing with moving the hips. One of the biggest things that you can, and this is the whole midsection, one of the best things that you can do, and this is where we're going to start getting into bringing the energy and being able to heal actual issues that we have within our organs, okay? But to a full body exercise, and I do this in the mornings, is after I do my breathing exercises and I just kind of get all the kinks out and I bounce around a little bit, you just take your hips and you move them around and you just feel the full range of motion, okay? Now I'm going to go through a bunch of little exercises. You guys can join in if you want or not, but I'd rather you guys see the exercises. To feel more grounded, if you want to feel more comfortable here and now and ground yourself a little more, here's one exercise that you can use. Again, always feet straight forward. Don't have too close of a stance because you're always going to be off balance. Not too far apart because that's not good for actually motioning and you're off balance too. Right underneath the hips. And what you can do is as you sink, now it's just a part of bouncing, but as you sink, you inhale, and as you press from the ground, you exhale. So, and you get into a rhythm where you're doing that, and you try and differentiate your bones from your muscles to where you feel the muscles sliding and sloshing all around the bones. And this is deeply relaxing. So when you're doing that and you're breathing, you're inhaling down, and that's you're bringing the energy in, and then you exhale out, which is exactly opposite of what you would imagine doing this exercise. But you do that until you feel like there's a separation between your muscles, your adipose tissue, which is a nice way of saying fat, your skin, everything, and your bones. So you're doing that, and you're becoming really loose. You're getting the energy going, and you do this for about 2, 3, 4 minutes, and then you stop, and then you just breathe normally. And you will notice that it is much easier to ground yourself. You'll actually notice all of your weight is being held by the ground. One important point to remember is a lot of the times we try to hold ourselves from the ground. That's why we hold so much tension in our bodies. If you see like a guru or a shaman, they're like jelly. Their muscles, when they're relaxed, they're completely relaxed. You can go from the muscle, you can touch their spine. And I'm being serious. In Chine Song, it's about getting in there enough to be able to touch the spine. And there's this method called painting the spine, where you can actually relax enough to where you're touching the spine the entire way and moving organs out of the way. But with this exercise, once you stop, you'll notice that all of your energy is supported by the ground. Mother. This is when you always feel like your mother is holding you. You will never feel uncomfortable because your mother is always supporting you. She's always there saying, I've got you. You don't have to do anything. If you feel scared, let me take you, right? It's like the footprints in the sand type of thing, if you've ever seen that poem, where, God and a guy or a girl walking along the beach, and the guy looks back on his life and sees all of these footprints and says, you know what, I see 2 sets of footprints the entire way through my life, except for the points where I'm dealing with struggle and stress and problems. Why did you abandon me in those times? And God says to the individual, no, my son, my daughter, that's when I was carrying you. Because we are part of the whole. And that is one thing, we always try and isolate ourselves when we're feeling pain. We don't want people to see us as less than perfect. Let the earth take your weight. This is symbolic, but it's very literal. When you're not letting the earth take your weight, you feel like you have the weight of the world that you're holding up. You're trying to separate yourself from the earth. Let your mother hug you at all moments. You will feel comfortable in the moment. Again, the hands. Now, okay, I'm going to go through really quickly the preparatory steps. I do this every single day. It doesn't have to be every single day, but 10 minutes of abdominal massage on yourself. Again, best things in life are free. When you're laying down to go to bed, so relaxing. If you have insomnia or problems going to sleep, this will really, really, really help you. Just the rest and relaxation you have after self-abdominal massage is better than I've ever had before. Your dreams are more vivid too. But 10 minutes of abdominal massage before going to bed, just touching your own stomach, letting all the organs know that you're there, is better than going into a practitioner for $150 an hour for weeks on end, okay? Because you are bringing your touch and your breath to your body and mind, or body and mind. You're bringing them together, and you're showing that you know you're there. So with the hands, toward the beginning of this, I told you about the perineum, where you clench, between the sexual organs and the anus. You clench that muscle, just like tensing up the glutes, as in if you're trying to hold in that gas. And you bring the energy up into your organs. And you can actually differentiate different parts of the muscles. The front brings energy up through the front and the frontal parts of the brain. The back takes the energy up through the sacrum, up into the back part of the brain. And you can actually isolate the muscles and get up to the left side, the right side. But when you just hold that energy there, clench your teeth and rub your hands. But you inhale, hold the inhale, tighten your perineum, bring the energy up, and clench your teeth. And what you'll notice as you're doing that, your hands are going to get very warm, but if you're clenching your teeth, which is actually very good for your teeth, if you're clenching your teeth, your face is going to start getting warm. And then what you do, you exhale and let all of your weight sink back into the earth. Okay? How do your hands feel? Tingly a little bit? That's when you know the energy is actually coming to your hands. There's another way to do this, and this is actually the way that I do it most every morning. But after you massage the hands, remember, it's just massaging, letting them know they're there, twisting them a little bit, full range of mobility, and then completely outstretched. Do this for 2-3 minutes, and then once you've done it for a few minutes, exhaling through the nose and bringing the energy back. And then just stop and as slowly as you can, bring your hands down. Focus on relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your back. Don't hold too much tension as you're trying to bring your hands down. And as they come down, your hands will start tingling more and more. And the farther they go down, yes, it's because blood is going to them. And then all this energy is now in the hands. And this primes the hands to be able to heal. If you notice, most energy workers, they'll do something with their hands, or a lot of shamans, they'll tremor and go like this a lot because they're getting the energy moving through their body. And this is how we heal. This is how we hold and we embrace, okay? And when we embrace, we bring people to the heart. So the first place that we go, what I believe is the most important, once you have the energy going through, just put your hands over your heart and breathe into it. And this is important. When we're talking about healing, the number one most healing thing you can do is let yourself know, let your innermost being know that you're okay, that you're fine. Because it doesn't matter how much internal massage or abdominal massage or moving the fecal matter or getting the energy going, none of that will have any effect on you whatsoever if you don't allow yourself to know that you're okay.
It's like that contentment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, try getting a massage and try relaxing when all you're worrying about or all you're thinking about is bills and what that person said to you yesterday. You're not going to relax. That massage is going to have no bearing on you whatsoever. Okay? So once you've done that, it's very important. This is how we start the abdominal massage. Without doing this, without priming all the energy and bringing your chi to your hands, it's just a massage. It's just mechanical, which I'm not saying that has no benefit whatsoever, but you're just touching your body. That's it. And that does bring energy. It does bring a little bit of chi to these areas. But this is also psychological. This is an expression of your heart as well. You want to bring your heart to every place within your body. So that's the first thing you do, is you relax, you get into your breathing, and you bring all of your energy to your hands. And then, when you're laying down, the first place to start is right around the belly button. You just tiny circles. You can put your fingers on either sides of the belly button and just tiny circles. And you just relax it, relax it, relax it. And it may take 15 minutes before it relaxes enough to feel like Play-Doh, but it eventually will. And if you do this for a few weeks, you'll notice that your abdomen will look different from day to day to day to day. You relax around the belly button because this is your connection with mother, your mother, okay? This is where you were connected to her. That's where she was connected to her mother. She was connected to her mother, all the way back to the beginning of the species. And then from there, that was the connection to the Earth Mother, okay? So this is very important. You start at the belly button, and you work around, and you just do tiny little, and remember, always focus on the intention going through your hands, but tiny little circles all the way around. And then once you've done that, obviously you spend a little bit more time than I'm going to show you here, but once you've done that, then you've pretty much gone all around the belly button. Now we're going to start working with the organs. The first one to start with is the large intestine, the colon. And where that starts, obviously down to the rectum, but it's right above the hip, right here. If you feel this is where my hip is, right in front of it, a lot of people have a distended, descending colon. And what that means is it's full of crap, totally full of crap. So when you feel it, it's stiff, and a lot of the times you'll feel that it's painful and it doesn't want you to go there. Your large intestines symbolically have to do with getting rid of things, finally letting things go that no longer serve you. When you're constipated, it's because you don't want to let go. When you have diarrhea, it's because you just don't want to see it, you just want to get rid of it. Neither of those work, okay? So you have your descending colon. So food, basically, once it gets to your large intestines, this is the last phase. It goes from your ascending colon up here, and then it has a flexure, meaning it kind of kinks around and turns. It goes across underneath the rib cage, and then it has another flexure, a kink in it, and then it goes down. That's the descending colon. The ascending colon is all about things that you're not even aware that you're dealing with. You're not even aware of it yet. It's unconscious. Working that, you're working with your unconscious symbolically, okay? And one thing is, again, when you feel the hip and you're laying down and you're relaxed, push down and pull the fascia, the skin, and all the meat underneath it, pull it away from the hip. What that's doing is that's unlodging a lot of energy that blocks itself right here at the hip. That's unlodging unconscious energy. When we're talking about the transverse colon here, that's stuff that you're just now becoming aware of. So all the things that you know that you're dealing with psychologically, emotionally, that's sitting right here. Once you've gotten to a point where you know you can work through it, now you're starting to get rid of it, and the descending colon. So to start, really important point before going forward, don't start on the ascending colon. It may seem like I want to move stuff out, so I want to start where it starts and move it out. Start the opposite way around, loosen it, and then go. Because you can impact and really damage yourself if you're moving energy through something that doesn't want to move here. That's like moving more and more stuff into a hose. You know, you just don't want to do that. But on both sides of the hips, to unlodge that energy, right where the hips meet the abdomen, pull in and up and away from the hip, and that will unlodge a lot of energy. That means you will start dealing with stuff. You'll finally start dealing with things, okay? Now, the liver is the next thing. You actually can access it, and it sits right here underneath the rib cage. And it's big. It's a big organ. The bulk of it sits right here, and it gets smaller, and sometimes it'll go all the way out here. Sometimes it'll stop right around the sternum. And to access that, a lot of the times, it's just about bringing intention there. So what I do is I do a lot of tapping on it, because tapping is the best way to start detoxing an organ, because it's bringing these tiny little jolts of energy. And when you do that, you actually start breathing into it unconsciously, so that you'll start detoxing, and you'll start feeling those feelings of frustration that maybe you haven't been dealing with for years and years and years. When you're actually getting a Chine Song treatment, they'll go underneath the rib cage and actually press underneath it so far that they're actually holding their hand on top of the liver, and they'll hold their hand underneath, and it's called baking. And it's just sending intention to the liver, and that's bringing a massive amount of chi and energy to it. And it will start heating up. You'll start sweating and dripping off your forehead from not doing anything, just because you hold a lot of heat there, okay? Now, the next thing is, right around here you have your triple heater or pericardium. It regulates the heat of your heart. Very, very important, and it's also very sensitive. If you've ever tried to massage just underneath right here where that bone is, if you've ever tried to massage there, that's very sensitive. Your body doesn't want you to go there a lot. And you want to be very careful there too. But you just let it know that it's there, and that will regulate the heat in your heart. Now, time, how much? Are we done?
Yeah, we're conference over.
All right, let me just, 2 more things really quickly. I just want to get through this circuit, because once you start doing this, you will really start dealing with a lot of your crap and start being able to process it. Because remember, this is all about processing emotions. Once you get over here, this is the earth quadrant. This is, now remember, you're looking at me, so it's your left side, your stomach, spleen, pancreas. This is where the food goes. This is where you feel grounded, how you feel comfortable. When you massage that, that's really just about getting in touch with here and now. So you don't have to spend too long there. But then once you do that, your small intestines sit from your belly button down to your pubic bone. And just by massaging that, that's where you start actually absorbing a lot of the nutrients in your food. Okay? The number one most important part of this is daily practice. If you do it just 4 to 5, even 10 minutes a day, every single day, the benefits are far better than having 4 hours once a week. Now, the timing may not even add up, obviously. 4 hours once a week, is far more than 10 minutes a day. But the reason is because this is a psychological thing. You want to let your body know consistently that you're there for it, that you recognize it, that the energy is going to start moving through you. If you have too large of gaps between doing this for yourself, your body isn't going to let it go into your subconscious routines. But if you do it every single day, specifically around the same time, after a while, your body's just going to start doing it on its own. It's going to become natural, okay? And this is where really the healing starts. Now, I just want to give one more, or a couple more slides. Go ahead. Forward, forward, forward. It's not going to let me? Yeah, forward, 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 forward. Okay, this is where I am, all right? Just take a look at yourself. It doesn't have to be in a real mirror. It can be in a real mirror, and it really does help. But just take a look at yourself and really be honest with yourself and how you're feeling. Because a lot of the times we ignore what we're really dealing with, and we pretend like we're dealing with other things. Like, oh, it's my job, it's this, that, and the other. No, we just don't feel like we know where we're going in life a lot of times. And we feel so uncomfortable that we fill it with things, okay? What you're going to see in the mirror, some of us will love, and you want to give it a big, wide open mouth French kiss, right? You're going to want to slobber all over it. Go ahead. And sometimes it'll scare the living shit. Sometimes it will not be what you want to see. But if you do it honestly, your inner child will be able to drop to its knees, love what's going on, and say, shit, yeah, bring it on, life. This is what it's all about. Living, being you. Find that child. They're inside all of us. They don't grow up, okay? Find it. And adopt an attitude that says, bring it on, life. If you love your life, if you truly love your life, then the pain is worth it. All of the pain is worth it, okay? Thank you guys for spending this time with me. Thanks, Jake. I just want to mention something real quick. I'm up here, again for, I would say, the second time we're meeting. Please support the Goddess's Lair. Is it the Goddess Lair or Goddess's Lair?
Goddess's Lair.
The Goddess's Lair. Please support the Goddess's Lair. They're doing incredible things and really empowering women to take the role that women should have in our society, okay? Should have much more of a role, and it's on men to be able to recognize that behind every strong, powerful man, even the greatest out there, have much more powerful women behind them, okay? The king was there not to give the rules. The king was there to express the compassion that they felt for their own wife, for their queen, okay? Bring that into balance. Help these lovely women bring that into balance. As well as Rob, very close friend of mine. I can't tell you how much you've saved my life in many ways. Thank you. Please support Rob in what he's doing. He is just tremendous in his ability to really find a human in all of you, okay? He's a dictionary in a way, but he recognizes, no matter what, that we are all humans and we're all on this journey together. Please support what they're doing. All of these DVDs up here, they're donation-based. I don't accept payment for it. Donate from the heart, and all of those donations are going to be split between these two beautiful community-based, groups here. So please, if you're going to donate, do it from the heart and recognize that it's going to 2, 3, 4, however many people are involved with this that are really sticking their necks out and putting their foot down and saying, the change starts here, okay? Thank you guys again. Thank you.